The chaos of Denver International hummed around them. Gate announcements echoing overhead. Families saying rushed goodbyes, and the sterile scent of recycled air lingering in every corner. Officer Thatcher Rowe had walked these halls for over a decade. But today, something felt off. He couldn't name it. He just knew it. His K-9 partner, Onyx, a sleek, powerful German shepherd with a flawless detection record, moved quietly at his side. Onyx never reacted without reason, never lunged, never barked without purpose. Until now, as they passed the waiting area near Gate 39, Onyx froze mid-step. His head whipped to the side, body locked like a loaded spring. And then he bolted. The leash yanked hard in Thatcher's grip, nearly pulling him forward. The dog charged toward a silver-haired woman arranging her luggage near a row of empty seats. She looked harmless, delicate. Her name, according to the flight manifest, was Eulalie Mira, 76, from Des Moines. But Onyx wasn't barking at her. He was locked onto the suitcase by her feet. "Ma'am, I need you to step away from your bag," Thatcher said, voice sharp but steady. Eulalie blinked, confused, clutching her smaller carry-on. I don't understand. That's just my travel bag. Clothes and toiletries. Nothing more." Onyx growled again, a low, guttural sound that turned heads nearby. He wasn't sniffing anymore. He was guarding. Like whatever was in that suitcase wasn't just suspicious. It was wrong. Thatcher moved fast. Backup was already en route, but protocol wouldn't wait. He unzipped the suitcase, expecting drugs, maybe a weapon. What he found instead chilled him. Beneath layers of neatly folded fabric was a wooden box, dark and aged, its edges etched with strange symbols. Hand-carved, worn, and unmistakably old. It didn't belong in an airport. It barely belonged in this century. The moment his glove touched the wood, a strange pulse moved up his arm, like a flicker of something ancient waking up. Eulalie had gone pale, her voice brittle. "That's not mine," she murmured, shaking her head. "I've never seen that before in my life." Onyx had stopped barking now, but he hadn't relaxed. He sat, ears forward, eyes locked on the box. Thatcher's hands felt colder the longer he held it. Then, flipping it over, he saw something that made his stomach drop. Engraved into the underside, burned deep into the grain, was a name. Not his badge name, not even his legal one. It was the name Thatcher had been born with, before the adoption, before the sealed records, before he walked away from that life. A name no one at the airport could have known. A name that hadn't been spoken aloud since the day his mother disappeared. If you love mystery stories with heroic dogs, hit that like button and subscribe now. We're on the road to 100,000 subscribers, and having you with us means the world. Join our pack so you never miss an emotional, thrilling story. Now buckle up. What happened with Thatcher and Onyx was just the beginning. The interrogation room was quiet, cold, and brightly lit. Too brightly. Thatcher sat across from Eulalie, the wooden box now sealed in an evidence bag on the table between them. Her hands were folded in her lap, knuckles white, lips pressed together. She hadn't spoken much since the incident at the gate. Not because she was being evasive, but because she was genuinely shaken. Whatever this woman was, she didn't feel like a criminal. She felt like someone caught in the middle of something she didn't understand. "Eulalie," Thatcher said, his voice lower now, almost kind. "I need you to tell me again, have you ever seen that box before today?" Her eyes flicked to his for just a second, and in that moment, something changed. Not fear, not confusion. Something older, sadder. "No," she said softly, "but it feels familiar." Thatcher felt a knot tighten in his gut. That wasn't the answer he wanted, or expected. He didn't believe in fate. He believed in evidence, in logic. But none of this was logical. The markings on the box had been sent to the forensics team. Ancient symbols, most likely Celtic, though not perfectly matched to any known dialect. One stood out, burned deeper than the others. It translated loosely to blood debt. That word hadn't left his mind since he saw it. Blood debt, and the name on the box, his birth name, Calder Rennick. A name buried in court documents, erased from databases, and locked away with every other remnant of his childhood. He hadn't spoken that name aloud in over 20 years. The last time he heard it was the night his mother, Seraphine Rennick, vanished without a trace. One day she was there, humming in the kitchen, braiding his hair back like she always did when he was scared. The next day, silence. No note, no struggle, just gone. And now this box with that name showing up in the bag of a stranger, escorted by a dog who had never made a mistake in his life. Something was pulling threads from his past, and it wasn't finished. As for Eulalie, she had started mumbling under her breath. Thatcher leaned forward. "What did you say?" She looked up at him slowly, eyes glassy. "The dreams," she whispered. "I've been having dreams for months, about a boy in a dark house, a fire, a voice calling for help, but I never reach him. I didn't know who he was, until I saw you." The room seemed to shrink. Onyx, sitting silently near the door, let out a faint whimper, not a warning, a sound of sorrow. Thatcher stood suddenly, the chair scraping against the floor. He needed air, space. He stepped out into the hallway and leaned against the cold concrete wall. His heart was pounding. None of this made sense, but deep down something was shifting, something old, something waiting. And for the first time in decades, the name Calder Rennick didn't feel like a memory, felt like a warning. That night, Thatcher sat alone in his apartment, the city lights of Denver flickering through half-closed blinds. The box had been taken into secure storage, but its weight still pressed on his mind like a storm refusing to break. He poured a glass of bourbon, though his hands were barely steady enough to hold it. He hadn't used the name Calder in 2 decades, and now it was everywhere. In the box, in Eulalie's haunted voice, in the dreams she described that mirrored his own, dreams he had buried with everything else. He opened an old trunk he hadn't touched since his father's funeral. Inside, buried beneath faded newspaper clippings and a cracked leather Bible, was the only photograph he had left of his mother, Seraphine Rennick, sharp cheekbones, eyes like thunderclouds, and a smile that always seemed to hide something. He remembered the night she disappeared, the fire alarm, the smell of smoke, the sight of his childhood home, burned halfway to the ground, with no trace of her inside. Police ruled it an accident. He never believed them. As he stared at the photo, the air in the room seemed to shift, heavier, colder. The lights flickered. He shook his head, pushing the feeling away. "Get a grip," he muttered, but just as he reached to put the photo back, he noticed something he'd never seen before. A faint marking in the lower corner of the frame, burned into the wood. The same symbol from the box, the exact same one. His breath caught. It had always been there, and he'd never noticed. The next morning, Thatcher returned to the station early. He needed answers. Forensics had finished their initial report on the box. No fingerprints, no signs of forced entry, but inside the lock mechanism, they'd found traces of something unusual. Ash. Human, possibly. Old. But the strangest part, they'd also found a single scrap of fabric, sealed in a hidden compartment under the base. The pattern was faint, but familiar. A child's pajama sleeve, blue with tiny moons. He remembered wearing it. He stared at the evidence bag in silence. Eulalie was brought back in for further questioning. But this time, she didn't seem afraid. She seemed resigned. "You were never supposed to see it," she said softly. "But I suppose that's not how these things work. The past doesn't stay buried. Not when there's a debt left unpaid." Thatcher leaned forward. "What debt? Who put that box in your suitcase?" Eulalie's eyes filled with tears. "I didn't pack it, but someone used me. Because of what I saw. Because I'm the last one who remembers the night your mother disappeared." Thatcher's heart dropped. He didn't speak. He couldn't. Because in that moment, everything slowed. His memories, his breath, the hum of the lights overhead. And in the silence that followed, one horrifying realization began to take shape. His mother hadn't vanished. She had been hidden, and someone was still trying to keep her there. Thatcher didn't go home that night. Instead, He drove for hours with no destination, chasing thoughts he couldn't outrun. Somewhere between the highway lights and the whisper of tires on wet asphalt, a memory returned, sharp and sudden. Place, a moment. He saw himself at 10 years old, standing in the attic of their old house in the woods of Calhoun County. His mother had been crying, though she tried to hide it. "If anything ever happens to me," she had said, "go to the wall behind the mirror." By sunrise, Thatcher was pulling into the overgrown gravel driveway of the burned-down house. What remained was nothing more than a blackened frame, swallowed by vines and silence. The attic was barely accessible, the floorboards rotting, but he found the mirror, shattered, the frame still bolted to what was left of the drywall. He pried it loose with a crowbar, and behind it, just as he remembered, was a hollow cavity. Inside, wrapped in layers of cloth gone yellow with time, was an envelope. A letter, sealed with wax, and on the front, a name written in elegant cursive. Calder. His hands trembled as he broke the seal. The paper inside was thin, brittle, but the ink was still dark. It was his mother's handwriting. "If you're reading this, then I failed to protect you from what's coming. The family name Rennick is cursed not by magic, but by memory. What they did to your grandfather. What I learned after, I tried to keep it from you, but some things won't stay buried. Not forever. Calder, you need to find the woman named Lysandra Vale. She knows the truth, and she's the only one left who can help you survive it." Thatcher stared at the name, Lysandra Vale. He had never heard it before, but it struck him with strange familiarity, like a tune half-remembered from childhood. The letter ended with coordinates, a location in northern Wyoming, a place called Ash Hollow. He didn't know who this woman was, or why his mother trusted her, but in that moment he made a choice. He would find her, no matter what waited there. Back at his car, as he unfolded an old road atlas, Onyx suddenly growled low from the passenger seat. Thatcher turned sharply and saw movement in the trees. Just for a second, a silhouette, watching him, but when he stepped out with his hand on his holster, there was no one there, just the whisper of wind through charred branches. And yet, deep in his gut he knew he wasn't alone. Someone knew he had found the letter, and they weren't ready to let him leave. The drive to Ash Hollow was long, desolate, and unnervingly quiet. As Thatcher crossed into northern Wyoming, the landscape changed. Flatlands giving way to jagged hills and dense pine forests. Cell signal faded hours ago. It felt like time itself thinned the deeper he drove. Onyx slept beside him in the passenger seat, ears twitching occasionally, as if reacting to things neither of them could see. Every mile felt like a step into something ancient. The town wasn't on any modern map. Just a rusted sign and a gravel road leading to a cluster of faded buildings surrounded by fog and silence. Ash Hollow felt abandoned but not forgotten. There were signs of life. Smoke curling from chimneys, a rocking chair gently creaking on a porch with no wind to move it. It didn't feel haunted. Felt watched. Thatcher parked in front of a weathered house with a red door, the same one listed in his mother's letter. He knocked twice. No answer. The third time, louder. Just as he turned to leave, the door creaked open a few inches. A single eye appeared in the gap, sharp, green, and full of recognition. "You're Calder," the woman said, not asked. Her voice was raspy, worn, but certain. She opened the door wider, revealing herself. She was in her late 60s, tall and thin, with long silver hair braided down her back. Lysandra Vale. The name hung in the air like the scent of something sacred or dangerous. Inside, the house was filled with relics, books, maps, sketches of symbol stature had only seen once before. On the box and in his mother's photo, Lysandra moved slowly but with purpose. She handed him a teacup, then sat across from him at the table. "You were never supposed to come here," she said. "But once the box found you, it was already in motion." Thatcher leaned in. "What is it? Why me?" She stared at him a long moment before answering. "Your family was part of something they tried to erase. Blood rituals, silent oaths. They didn't summon demons, they summoned memory. Memory that could hurt, that could haunt, that could destroy. Your grandfather tried to end it. Your mother hid you to keep you from becoming the next piece in the cycle. But they found her. And now they've found you. The words dropped like stones in Thatcher's chest. He thought he was chasing answers. But maybe the answers were chasing him. Before he could respond, Onyx stood abruptly, ears up, growling low toward the front of the house. Lysandra didn't panic. She simply whispered, "They're early." She reached beneath the table and pulled out an old revolver. "You need to listen to me very carefully, Calder. If they followed you here, they're not coming to threaten you. They're coming to collect. Would you dare step into Ash Hollow? Drop a comment below. What would you do if you were in Thatcher's shoes? Stay for answers? Or run before they arrive? I want to hear your theory." The knock at the door wasn't loud. It was slow, rhythmic. As if whoever was on the other side wasn't just announcing their presence, they were counting down. Thatcher's breath slowed. Lysandra didn't flinch. She slid a second revolver across the table toward him. It was old, but well-maintained. "Don't fire unless they cross the threshold," she said calmly. "If you do, they'll take it as permission." Onyx stood frozen near the window, growling low and constant. Through the dusty glass, Thatcher saw three figures, cloaked in dark coats, standing motionless under the gray sky. No badges, no cars, just there, watching, waiting. It was the kind of silence that wasn't empty, it was full of threat. "Who are they?" he asked. Lysandra's jaw tightened. "They call themselves the Steep. They're not a group. They're a bloodline, and you were born into it." Thatcher felt the floor shift beneath him. "I never chose this." Lysandra's eyes met his. "Neither did your mother. But your grandfather did. And the price didn't end with him. Passed to Seraphine. Then to you. That's how it works, Calder. The firstborn always inherits the memory. The box wasn't a warning. It was an invitation. And you accepted it the moment you opened it." Suddenly the front door creaked. Not from being opened, from pressure. Something or someone was pressing against it, testing the frame. Lysandra stood slowly, raising her weapon. "They won't hurt me. But you're the link. The last one with the right blood. They need your consent to complete the ritual. And if they can't get it peacefully..." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't need to. Thatcher's mind raced. Everything his life had been built on, his career, his name, his silence, was a lie. The name Calder Rennick wasn't just a memory. It was a key, a bond. And that box wasn't just carved wood. It was a seal. And he had broken it. "How do I stop it?" he asked, voice barely above a whisper. Lysandra stepped closer, eyes fierce. "You don't. You survive it. But not as Thatcher. You'll have to remember who you were before they took everything." Then the front window shattered. The sound of glass shattering wasn't sharp. It was deep, like something ancient breaking free. Shards sprayed across the wooden floor as the cold wind rushed in. Onyx lunged toward the broken window with a snarl, barking wildly. Through the jagged opening, Thatcher caught a glimpse of one of the figures stepping forward. No emotion on the face, no weapon, just a stare that pierced straight through him. Like the stranger already knew him. Lysandra grabbed his arm hard. "We move now." She yanked open a hidden trapdoor behind the kitchen cupboard and pointed. "Root cellar. Connects to the woods. It's how your mother escaped them the first time." Thatcher hesitated, gun still clenched. "What about you?" Her answer was simple. "They're not here for me. I've already paid." Before he could argue, she shoved him through and slammed the hatch shut behind him. The darkness was immediate. Damp, tight. He could hear the creaking floorboards above as footsteps entered the house. Slow, unhurried, confident. The air felt thick with something Thatcher couldn't name, like memory made physical. He crawled forward, guided only by the sound of Onyx's breathing just ahead. Every corner of the tunnel reeked of mold and old smoke, but beneath it was something else, something metallic, like dried blood. They emerged at the tree line behind the property, the forest stretching endlessly in every direction. The cold bit into his skin, But he didn't stop. They ran. For minutes, maybe hours, until they reached a small clearing with a rusted well in the center. Thatcher collapsed to his knees, gasping. Onyx paced in circles, ears twitching, restless. That's when he saw it, etched into the stone rim of the well. The same symbol from the box, from the letter, from the frame. But this time with an inscription beneath it. The fire must return to where it began. Thatcher's pulse spiked. The well wasn't just a landmark. It was a marker, place meant to be found. As he ran his hand over the rough carvings, a memory slammed into him. He was a child again, standing beside the same well, his mother's voice behind him, whispering, "Not yet, Calder. You're not ready." But now, he was, and he wasn't alone. Onyx growled toward the edge of the trees. The figures had followed. Slowly, silently, they were closing in again. This time Thatcher didn't run. The clearing was silent but not still. The air vibrated, almost humming, as if the ground beneath Thatcher's feet remembered every secret buried there. The cloaked figures stood at the edge of the trees, just beyond the firelight. 5 of them now. None spoke, none moved. They simply watched. And in the center of it all, the old well pulsed with something ancient, something alive. Thatcher felt it in his bones. This wasn't just a place. It was a threshold. "Why here?" he whispered aloud. Eyes locked on the symbol etched in stone. Onyx stood beside him, unmoving, alert. Thatcher reached into his coat and pulled out the letter. His mother's final message. It fluttered in the wind like a dying leaf. The words echoed in his mind. "The family name is cursed not by magic, but by memory." He finally understood. The rituals his ancestors had performed weren't about summoning spirits. They were about preserving pain, passing it down, keeping it alive. One of the figures finally stepped forward. A woman. Her hood fell back to reveal an aged, familiar face. Thatcher's breath hitched. It was Seraphine, his mother. Her hair was silver now, her features sharper, harder. But it was her, alive, changed. "Calder," she said softly. "Not Thatcher. Calder. I tried to shield you from this, but you opened the box. You called it back." His voice cracked. "They said you were dead." Her eyes filled with something between grief and resignation. "I was. In every way that mattered." He stepped forward, heart pounding. "Tell me the truth. All of it." Seraphine glanced at the other figures, then back at him. "Our line was bound to this land generations ago. Every firstborn carried the burden, the memories of every ancestor before them. That's what the box held. Not a curse, a chain. I broke it once long ago, but when I did, the others turned on me, hid me, used me, and now they want you to finish what I refused." The figures formed a circle around the well. One by one, they began to chant. Not words, but sounds, deep and rhythmic, like the heartbeat of the earth itself. Seraphine's expression grew pained. "They want your consent, Calder, to pass the burden fully. If you step into that circle, the memories become yours. All of them, forever." His hands trembled. "And if I don't," her voice was barely audible, "then they take you anyway. But you won't be you when it's done." The ground shook slightly. The fire in the center flared higher. Onyx barked, tense, looking from Thatcher to the well. The moment of choice had come, and as the circle began to close, and the memory of generations pressed in from all sides, Calder Rennick realized. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about ending the cycle or becoming part of it. The fire cracked and spit embers into the night sky, its heat pulsing in waves that matched Calder's heartbeat. The circle around the well was nearly complete, each cloaked figure moving with deliberate, synchronized steps. Above the wind, the low chant grew into something that didn't sound human anymore. It was deeper, older, remembered. At the center, Seraphine stood barefoot in the dirt, her arms raised like an offering. "It has to be your choice, Calder," she called. "They can't take what isn't given." He stepped forward, his boots pressing into the soft earth. But the weight wasn't just physical. With every movement, it felt like 1,000 lives were pressing into his skin. Voices he'd never heard whispering things he wasn't ready to understand. He looked at the figures around him and saw flashes. A battlefield soaked in blood, a crying infant abandoned in the woods, a woman lighting a fire with trembling hands. Memories, not his, but becoming his. "What happens if I say yes?" Calder asked, his voice hoarse. Seraphine turned to face him. Her expression was unreadable, equal parts grief and hope. "Then it ends with you," she said. "No more passing it down, no more hiding. You become the vault, the vessel. You carry it all, so no one else ever will." His eyes drifted to the blade she held. A ceremonial dagger, its handle carved with the same symbol as the box, the same one etched into his past. He took the blade slowly, feeling the cold weight settle into his hand. Onyx whined softly behind him but didn't move. Calder approached the well. The stone glowed faintly now, pulsing like it recognized him, like it was waiting. His reflection in the dark water below didn't look like the man who worked airport security. It looked like someone older, more tired, someone who had lived 100 lives. He raised the blade, then, movement fast and sharp, Onyx lunged, placing himself between Calder and the well, teeth bared, growling low and fierce. Calder froze. "What are you doing?" he whispered, but the dog didn't move. His eyes locked with Calder's, not aggressive but desperate. He wasn't guarding the well, he was guarding him, and that's when Calder understood. This wasn't sacrifice, this was surrender, and Onyx refused to let him disappear. He stepped back from the stone, the blade still in hand. "There has to be another way," he said aloud, though he wasn't sure who he was talking to. His mother, the cloaked figures, or the memories clawing inside him. Seraphine lowered her arms, something flickering behind her eyes. Fear, hope, or maybe both. The wind picked up again, swirling the embers higher, and Calder looked at the well not as a legacy, but as a prison. And for the first time in generations, someone was standing outside it, questioning if it deserved to exist at all. The wind howled through Ash Hollow like a scream trapped between centuries. Calder stood at the edge of the well, the ceremonial blade heavy in his grip, his heart pounding with a rhythm that no longer felt like his own. Around him, the figures had stopped chanting. They watched in silence, as if waiting for a verdict. Even Seraphine, eyes filled with silent urgency, said nothing. This moment didn't belong to any of them. It belonged to him. He looked down into the dark water below. It shimmered unnaturally, as if reflecting not just light but memory. Fragments of lives, voices, choices, regrets. The box, the symbols, the name. It had all led here. Calder Rennick, the boy who had once been hidden to escape a legacy, was now being asked to accept it fully. But something in his soul rebelled. He didn't come this far to repeat the pattern. He came to end it. Slowly, deliberately, Calder dropped the blade. It hit the earth with a dull thud, swallowed by the dirt and pine needles. Gasps echoed from the circle. Seraphine's eyes widened, not in anger, but in realization. Calder turned to her. "It ends, not because I carry it, but because I refuse to." Then he reached into his coat and pulled out the letter. His mother's letter, and lit it on fire. The flame spread fast, consuming every word, every instruction, every chain. Without hesitation, he walked to the well, picked up a heavy stone from the ground, and raised it above his head. Onyx barked sharply as Calder brought it crashing down onto the edge of the well. Stone cracked, again, and again. The third blow broke the seal. A rumble echoed beneath their feet, deep and distant, like something ancient collapsing in on itself. The water inside turned black, then vanished, gone, silent. The cloaked figures began to dissolve, not in fire or smoke, but like shadows in sunlight. Their outlines faded into the wind, carried off with the ashes of the memory they had protected for generations. Only Seraphine remained, watching. A tear slid down her cheek, and for the first time in decades, she smiled. "You did what none of us could," she whispered. "You broke the cycle." Calder stepped toward her, but her form was already beginning to fade, gently, peacefully, as if released. And then there was only silence. The clearing stood empty, the well reduced to rubble. The sky above was clear now, filled with stars. Calder knelt beside Onyx, who leaned into him, calm and still. For the first time in his life, the weight was gone. No voices, no legacy, just the freedom of being. He looked toward the trees, toward the path back home. He didn't know what tomorrow would hold, but for once, it would be his story to write. If the story moved you, gave you chills, or left you thinking long after it ended, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on the bell. More true to life, emotional, and unforgettable stories are on the way. Thank you for watching, and remember, some truths are meant to be found.